Silence is a strange thing. On the surface, it seems calm, peaceful even, but underneath, it can be one of the loudest forms of pain. You think by saying nothing, you're keeping the peace. You think that holding back your truth is the safer option. You tell yourself, I don't want to hurt him. I don't want to start a fight. It's not the right time. But the truth is, your silence is the storm. It's not protecting anyone. It's not avoiding pain, it's creating it. And the person it's breaking most is the one still trying to love you without a map, because while you're quiet, he's wondering. While you're holding back, he's overthinking every word he said. While you're convincing yourself it's nothing, he's lying awake at night wondering if he's the problem. You think men don't feel deeply. Let me tell you something. Some of the deepest pain is carried by men who were never taught how to show it. They don't cry in front of you. They don't beg for answers. They just carry it, silently, alone, until one day they stop trying, and when they stop trying, you might call them cold, detached, distant. But what you don't see is that your silence pushed them into that distance, not all at once, but slowly, in the little moments where they reached out and you pulled away, in the questions they asked that you answered with half-truths, in the times you were hurting but didn't let them in the chances you had to speak, but chose silence instead. And here's the part no one tells you: he's not just suffering because he misses you. He's suffering because he doesn't understand you. He's suffering because he's showing up, trying to read between the lines, trying to fix what he doesn't even know is broken. And every day you stay quiet, you widen the gap between you and him. You're not wrong for being unsure. You're not wrong for needing space, but you are responsible for what your silence creates. And if you care, even just a little, then let him in, even if you don't have all the answers. Even if it's messy, even if your voice shakes, because vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a bridge. It's the thing that reminds the person on the other side that you still care, that you still feel, that you're still in this. Don't let pride, fear, or ego rob you of real connection. Don't let silence kill something that still has life in it. Silence isn't neutrality, it's communication. We like to tell ourselves that if we just don't say anything, we're not adding to the problem. We're not hurting anyone, we're not lying, we're not misleading. We're simply staying out of it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Silence is a message. It speaks volumes, and the longer you let it stretch, the louder it becomes. When you choose not to speak, especially when someone is waiting for answers, for clarity, for closure, you're not staying neutral. You're creating a space where assumptions grow. You're letting someone spiral in their own head, wondering what they did wrong, what changed, what they missed. Silence doesn't keep things calm. It creates confusion, self-doubt, anxiety. It leaves the other person alone in the dark, fumbling for reasons and blaming themselves for something you're not brave enough to say. We convince ourselves that silence is gentle, that it's better than delivering a hard truth. That if we stay quiet, maybe things will sort themselves out, maybe feelings will fade, and maybe we can exit without causing pain. But silence is pain, because when someone cares, when someone is emotionally invested, they notice everything: the shift in tone, the distance, the slow fade, and the silence. It screams. It tells them everything you're afraid to admit. That you've already pulled away, that you're no longer in it, that something's broken, but you won't say what. The silence becomes a kind of power. It gives you control, because now the other person is stuck waiting for your words. They're stuck living in a story they didn't write, waiting for a conclusion they didn't ask for. And maybe you think you're sparing them. Maybe you think, if I say it out loud, it will hurt more. But what really hurts is being left in the dark, where every possibility feels worse than the truth. Silence doesn't protect feelings, it prolongs suffering, and it's not just about romantic relationships. This applies to friendships, family dynamics, even professional environments. Every time you choose silence over honest, respectful communication, you leave someone else holding the weight of something that wasn't meant to be theirs. You avoid the discomfort of the moment but create a lasting wound for someone else. Here's the real reason most people stay silent. It's not about kindness. It's about fear. Fear of confrontation. fear of not being liked, fear of being seen as the bad guy. But the truth is, you're not doing someone a favor by sparing them the truth. You're protecting yourself from having to feel guilty. You're prioritizing your comfort over their clarity. And that's not noble. That's avoidance. Speaking up isn't easy. It requires courage. It means stepping into discomfort, facing someone's emotions, and possibly watching someone you care about hurt. But honesty, even when it's painful, is a form of respect. It's saying, I care enough about you to give you the truth, even if it's hard. It's giving them the chance to move on, to heal, to grow, without being tethered to false hope or unanswered questions. In the end, silence is never neutral. It shapes the story, whether you want it to or not. And the longer you stay silent, the more space you give for someone else to suffer in the not knowing. If you truly care, you'll find the courage to speak, because truth, even when it's uncomfortable, is always kinder than a silence that slowly destroys. Avoiding hard truths only deepens the wound. We like to believe that by not saying something painful, we're sparing someone. That silence, or softening the edges of what we really feel, is somehow more compassionate. But what we're often doing isn't kindness, it's delay, and delay, when it comes to the truth, is dangerous. Here's what happens when you hold back something someone deserves to know. They start filling in the blanks. They sense the shift, even if they can't put it into words. They notice the tone that's not quite the same, the messages that come slower, the moments that feel more distant. People are intuitive. They know when something's off. And when you don't give them the truth, they're left to make up their own version of it. And it's usually far more painful than reality. Avoiding the truth doesn't stop the hurt. It just shifts it. It drags it out. It makes someone question their worth, their intuition, their value, and it robs them of the opportunity to face the pain and start to heal. Because people can handle the truth. What they can't handle is feeling strung along. Feeling like something is wrong and not being told what. Feeling like the person they trusted doesn't trust them enough to be honest. We think we're being merciful by dodging the hard conversation, but mercy without truth is manipulation. If you're not in love anymore, say it. If you're no longer invested in the friendship, say it. If the job, the plan, the promise you made no longer aligns with your truth, speak it. Delaying that moment doesn't make the pain smaller. It makes it sharper when it finally hits. It turns what could have been one clean wound into 1,000 little cuts that don't stop bleeding. And here's the part we don't talk about enough. Avoiding the truth doesn't just hurt them. It hurts you. Carrying the weight of what you're not saying starts to eat away at your peace. You become resentful, withdrawn, avoidant. You overthink everything. You feel guilty for the way you're pulling back, but you can't bring yourself to be honest because you're scared of the reaction. So you pretend everything's fine while knowing deep down it's not. That inner conflict creates distance, tension, and emotional exhaustion. When you avoid the truth, you also avoid growth. You miss the chance to be real, to be brave, to show up with integrity. And yes, truth can hurt, but pain with clarity is better than comfort built on a lie, because the truth doesn't destroy relationships. The absence of it does. We crave realness, even if it's raw. We respect people who can tell us something hard with compassion, because it means they see us as strong enough to handle it. It's not your job to manage someone else's feelings. It's your job to show up honestly and with care. When you speak the truth, you give someone the dignity of knowing where they stand. You let them respond. You let them feel what they need to feel and move forward. That's how wounds begin to heal, through clarity, not confusion. Avoiding hard truths might feel like the safer road in the short term, but long term, it does more harm than good. Because the longer you wait to speak, the more tangled everything becomes, and when the truth finally surfaces, as it always does, it lands harder. Be the person who chooses courage over comfort. Say what needs to be said with love and with honesty, because that's how healing starts. That's how trust is built, even in the face of pain. And that's how you show someone, even if it's the end, that they were worth the truth. Clarity is kindness, even when it hurts. It's one of the most difficult lessons to learn because somewhere along the way, many of us started to believe that being nice means being agreeable, being soft, being comfortable. But real kindness isn't about comfort. It's about respect, and respect begins with truth. When you're honest with someone, even when the message is painful, you're showing them that you value their time, their feelings, and their ability to handle reality. You're saying, I see you as someone strong enough to hear this, someone worthy of not being misled. That's a powerful form of kindness, one that goes deeper than surface-level politeness or false reassurance. Too often, we avoid being clear because we don't want to be the source of someone's pain. So we hedge, we sugarcoat, we delay. We give mixed signals. We say things we don't mean, or we say nothing at all. We tell ourselves we're trying to protect them, but what we're really doing is protecting ourselves from guilt, from discomfort, from having to face someone else's emotional response. But in trying to avoid hurting someone in the moment, we often end up hurting them more in the long run. Because when there's no clarity, there's no closure. People are left in a loop of confusion, wondering what they did wrong, what they missed, what changed. They replay conversations, overanalyze messages, and question their worth. The lack of clarity becomes a source of deep emotional pain, not just because of what was or wasn't said, but because of the uncertainty it leaves behind. Clarity stops the bleeding. It allows someone to sit with the truth, as hard as it may be, and begin the process of healing. It draws a line between what was and what is. It gives people the ability to make informed decisions about their own lives, whether that's walking away, setting boundaries, or letting go. And yes, clarity can hurt. It can sting, but pain with a clear explanation is something people can work through. Confusion is what lingers. Confusion is what damages self-esteem. Confusion is what leads to resentment and regret. Clear communication is also a reflection of emotional maturity. It shows that you're not just thinking about your own comfort, but about the other person's well-being. It shows that you're willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of honesty. And sometimes the kindest thing you can do is be the person who tells the truth no one else has the courage to say, not harshly, not carelessly, but with compassion and respect. Clarity also sets people free. It frees them from the prison of assumptions. It frees them from the waiting, the hoping, the trying to fix something that isn't theirs to fix. It frees them to feel what they need to feel and to begin again. That freedom is a gift, one they can't receive unless you're willing to hand it to them, openly and honestly. Even in love, especially in love, clarity is essential. Saying, I'm not in this anymore, or this isn't working, can feel like betrayal. But what's more cruel is pretending to still care when you don't, pretending there's a future when your heart has already walked away. People deserve to know where they stand. They deserve to know what's real. Because only then can they choose what's right for them. Kindness isn't always easy. Sometimes it looks like a hard conversation. Sometimes it sounds like goodbye. But when it comes from a place of sincerity and care, even painful clarity is a form of love. It's the kind of love that says, I respect you too much to lie to you. That's the kind of love that leaves a scar, maybe, but not a wound that festers. Clarity heals. It always does. You're not doing him a favor by staying. That's a hard truth to face, especially when your heart is torn between guilt and responsibility. You might think you're being kind by holding on, by pretending you still feel something you don't, or by delaying the inevitable because you're scared of how much it'll hurt him. But staying for the wrong reasons doesn't protect someone. It slowly breaks them. We tell ourselves, he's a good person, he doesn't deserve pain, and maybe he is. Maybe he's kind, loving, patient, and genuinely trying. But staying in something your heart has already left isn't love. It's survival. It's fear wrapped in good intentions. And no matter how noble it may seem on the surface, it's not fair to either of you. Because deep down he knows. People always know when something has shifted. He can feel the emotional distance, even if he can't explain it. He sees the hesitation in your eyes, the way your laughter feels a little forced, the way the "I love you" doesn't land the same way it used to. And here's the thing, you staying doesn't stop him from hurting, it just confuses him, it makes him question his worth. He starts to overthink, trying harder, showing up more, wondering what he did wrong, when the truth is, it's not about what he did. It's about what you no longer feel but are too afraid to say. Staying when your heart is no longer in it doesn't delay the pain, it multiplies it. Because every day you stay out of guilt is a day you steal from him the chance to be truly loved by someone who chooses him freely. You're not saving him, you're slowing him down, you're holding space in his life that could be filled by someone who genuinely sees him and feels lucky to have him. You're occupying a role your soul doesn't want, and that tension creates cracks. Cracks in connection, cracks in communication, cracks in trust. He might not see them clearly yet, but he feels them. He feels the effort being forced. He feels the energy of someone who's half in, half out. Sometimes we stay because we're scared to be the one who causes pain, but dragging someone through a slow emotional withdrawal is far more damaging than facing the hard truth head on. You may think you're being kind, but kindness without honesty becomes manipulation. You control the narrative, thinking you're protecting his heart, when really you're avoiding the emotional labor of being honest. He deserves more than your obligation. He deserves more than your emotional leftovers. He deserves someone who is all in, not someone who's mentally checked out but still physically present because they're afraid of being the one who ends it. And you deserve more too. You deserve the freedom to feel deeply, to speak honestly, and to move towards something real, not something maintained out of fear or guilt. You're not doing him a favor by staying. You're just postponing the freedom both of you need. And yes, it will hurt. Yes, he may cry, question, or feel shattered, but that pain, when delivered with honesty and care, becomes a beginning, not an end, a beginning for him to rebuild, to reclaim his self-worth, and to eventually find someone who looks at him and says, "I choose you," without hesitation. That kind of love can't exist while you're standing in the doorway, unsure, but unwilling to leave. Letting go doesn't make you heartless. It makes you honest, and in the end, truth delivered with compassion is the most loving thing you can give someone. Staying might feel easier, but it's not kinder. Love isn't supposed to feel like a cage for either of you. Set him free. Set yourself free. That's the favor you both deserve. Honest endings are better than dishonest forever. That line might sting at first, especially when you've poured so much of yourself into something, into someone, but deep down you know it's true. There's a certain kind of pain that comes from realizing something isn't working anymore, but there's a deeper, more corrosive kind of pain that comes from pretending it still is. We're taught to hold on, to fight for love, to push through the hard seasons, and yes, some things are worth fighting for, but not at the cost of your honesty, not at the cost of your peace, and certainly not at the cost of someone else's truth. Because staying in something just to avoid hurting the other person isn't kindness, it's a quiet betrayal, not the loud, explosive kind, but the slow erosion of what once felt real. When you keep saying, "I'm fine," when you keep showing up with half your heart, when you let the days pass filled with silence, tension, or polite distance, what you're really doing is giving them a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. And maybe they don't see it right away. Maybe they're still holding on, still trying, still believing that things will get better, but they can feel it, the absence, the forced smiles, the conversations that stay on the surface. The way your affection feels mechanical instead of meaningful, you might think you're saving them from pain by staying. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. That might sound like a tough pill to swallow, but it's one of the most empowering truths you can internalize. Every time you let something slide that hurts you, every time you make excuses for someone's repeated disrespect, every time you shrink your voice to keep the peace, you're setting a silent standard. You're telling people, this is okay, this is acceptable, this is what I'll allow. It doesn't mean you're responsible for other people's bad behavior, but it does mean you play a role in the patterns you allow to continue. People learn how to treat you not just by what you say, but by what you do and what you don't do. If you let someone speak to you in a way that chips at your confidence, if you keep showing up for someone who only meets you halfway, if you keep forgiving without ever requiring real change, you're reinforcing a dynamic where your needs don't matter. The hardest part about this truth is that it forces you to take accountability, not for the actions of others, but for the boundaries you've failed to hold. It's uncomfortable, especially if you're someone who leads with empathy. You want to believe that if you give more, love more, or wait longer, they'll see your worth. But the reality is, people rarely rise to the level of your hopes. They rise to the level of your standards. And if your standards are low because you're afraid of losing them, then what you're really losing is yourself. Tolerance often comes disguised as patience or love. They're going through something. They didn't mean it. It's just how they are. These phrases might feel compassionate, but if they're being used to justify ongoing pain, they're not kindness, they're avoidance. And with every excuse, you chip away at your self-respect. You teach yourself that your discomfort is less important than their comfort, that your needs are negotiable, that your boundaries are flexible if it means avoiding conflict. But here's the truth. People who genuinely care about you won't be threatened by your boundaries. They'll respect them, because they know that relationships built on mutual respect aren't one-sided. They require accountability, they require effort, and they require an understanding that love doesn't mean being allowed to do whatever you want without consequence. You don't have to yell to teach people how to treat you. You don't have to be cold or harsh. You just have to be consistent. When someone crosses a line, you address it. When someone shows you they're unwilling to meet you with the same energy, you adjust your availability. You stop giving full access to people who only offer partial presence. You stop begging for the bare minimum. And most importantly, you stop betraying yourself just to keep someone else comfortable. Teaching people how to treat you isn't about controlling them, it's about honoring you. It's about saying, I know what I deserve, I know how I want to be loved, I know what respect looks like, and I won't settle for less. And when you stand in that truth, you'll start to notice something powerful. The wrong people will fall away, but the right people, the ones who see you, value you, and truly want to grow with you, will step up. Not because you forced them to, but because your energy demanded it. So the next time you feel disrespected, overlooked, or emotionally depleted, ask yourself, what am I allowing, and what am I teaching them about how to treat me? The answers might hurt, but they'll also set you free. Because the moment you stop tolerating what wounds you is the moment you start creating space for what truly honors you. And if you've already lost him, if the silence stayed too long and the distance became permanent, then let this be the last time you make someone suffer for a truth you were too afraid to speak. Say what you feel, say what you need, say the thing that scares you, because real love deserves real words. And the longer you stay silent, the more he suffers.